In and around the 1950s, planet Earth became a different place. The British, the Americans, the French and the Russians began testing colossal atomic bombs. In a dramatic show of power during the Cold War. By the 1960s, these above-ground atomic explosions had stopped, but not before the blasts had had some far-reaching and somewhat surprising consequences. Almost everything and everyone on Earth contains a tiny pulse of those nuclear bombs. Each atomic blast released an enormous amount of highly energetic neutrons into the atmosphere. These neutrons slam into nitrogen atoms and knock out a proton, converting a 7-proton, 7-neutron nitrogen into a 6-proton, 8-neutron carbon. Carbon normally just has 6 neutrons, so those extra 2 neutrons make this a special form of carbon, called carbon-14. Carbon-14 makes up a tiny proportion of the total amount of naturally occurring carbon on Earth. During the era of atomic testing, that amount of carbon-14 in the air doubled. It circulated around the globe. Carbon-14 acts like just regular carbon, reacting with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. Trees breathe in carbon dioxide and use the sunshine to convert it into useful plant food. They don't know, and they don't care, about the difference between regular carbon and carbon-14. This means virtually every tree on the planet that was alive in 1954 contains a souvenir of the atomic bomb, a spike of carbon-14 in its rings. But it goes further than that. In 2005, a Swedish biologist called Jonas Friesen had an idea. If the carbon-14 spike affects trees, could it also affect people? After all, people eat plants and the products of trees like fruits, nuts and olives. And they also eat the animals that eat plants and the products of those trees. So it would make sense then that the carbon-14 concentration in the human body closely mirrors that of the atmosphere. Once carbon-14 enters the food chain and enters our cells, these carbon-14 atoms become integrated into the DNA. By using carbon-14 levels to determine the age of the DNA, researchers can determine when, exactly, a cell was created. Friesen discovered that humans born in the 1950s had more carbon-14 in their DNA. This allowed him to actually approximate a person's age by examining their brain cells, since a higher carbon-14 count means they were conceived in the era of atomic testing. It's also possible to use this to pinpoint a wine's vintage to within a year by analysing the levels of carbon-14 in the wine. Those blasts 50 years ago still live on today, in our trees, in our teeth, in our wine, and in the very DNA that makes us human.